Excellent, thank you. We'll call this meeting of Capital Program Committee to order. It's Thursday, July 25th, 3:05 p.m. We have no members on Zoom. Let's see, this meeting is being audio video recording. Anything you say or display will be shared on the town's YouTube channel. Please act accordingly. Comments for the chair to make it easier for the minutes taking and to avoid crosstalk, which is a distraction. Can I get a motion for the agenda? Thank you, Joe.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There's unanimously. Let's see, public comment. There are no members of the public to comment. I think we're going to keep a little tally of how many meetings. I think we're up to like 300 or so meetings without that. Be nice to get some public comment for these requests. Minutes, potential adoptions of the minutes for August 10th. Sue, I got one correction and I want to bring it up to point out. So it's a programmatic pattern.
Okay.
So, bear with me when I get to share the screen. No, it's on that one.
What do you need?
I think I get it now. This is sharing only on one of.
Yeah, it only should. Yeah.
So the modification will just make your the table. It's not significant.
I can't screen.
You can't see it.
No, I'm so sorry. Are you?
No, you didn't share.
It's usually at the bottom there. Oh, it usually says share screen. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
That maybe just that for the bottom. Oh, this is actually. Bear with me.
That's okay.
Hey, Sue. Hi, how are you? I have
Hi.
a question for you.
Sure.
When you send the meeting invitations around in the subject matter, can you put the date of the meeting so that when you sort through it, you can know which one you should be clicking on as a link?
Oh, sure. I thought that it goes right to your calendar when you accept it.
It does, but when I'm in my email and not looking at my calendar, I'm trying to find emails from you with attachments.
Sure, absolutely. I don't have an issue with that. I can do that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you see that, Sue?
Yes, it's just your desktop.
No, it's not the session.
Is there something you would like me to share?
Yeah, if you could bring up the minutes of from the packet of 8:10,
Yeah.
that would make it simpler.
I actually have it open. Hold on one sec. Yeah. You stop. Oh, you have them up.
Oh, you did see, okay.
They're there now. Thank you.
That is the oddest thing, they're showing up on screen. So you can see them on your screen?
Yes.
So the only point I wanted to make, and it's easier to try and even explain this in an email, is that if you can you still see them?
Yep.
Okay. What's happening is there's a page break here And this cell is not in all the minutes. Wrapping the text sufficiently that you can actually read it. So this portion that I'm highlighting now,
I can't see it anymore. I'm so sorry. It disappeared.
now,
Nope, I only see your desktop.
Why don't you, can you put a page break next time around? Or, before roll call vote, or you could insert an extra cell and make it bigger to move that whole thing to the next page.
no, I think the issue is, I'm just trying to show her what I'm trying to get into.
Suggesting how to fix it.
Yeah, but I don't do the minutes, so I'm trying to convey. All right, this is just like a disaster, one disaster here. All right, so, do you have a copy of the 8-10 minutes in front of you?
I do.
Okay, so if you go to the bottom of the page, the first page. In the PDF I received, there's some text that isn't within the cell with the other text. And it refers to the duties of the select board members.
Correct.
So what's happening there is that's a print issue with the PDF, but what's happening within the Word documents within which the minutes are being recorded is the lowest cell on the first page isn't rolling all the text, isn't creating a new cell on the top of the second page. So some of the text isn't being shown.
Okay.
So that's just a, programmatic thing for you guys to be aware. The actual change in the minutes is to indicate, I think I'll just send it to you because it'll be easier than trying to do it without being able to see the screen because I don't know what you're seeing.
I just see a blue screen.
Yeah, no, I'll send it to you.
Great.
Skip disaster. Okay, so I'm gonna ask for that we hold the minutes for till next week. We don't need to vote on it. Election of officers, we clearly don't have quorum, we don't have membership, we have 2 new members to be appointed. My understanding is Peter Kaiser put in and Jill Landowski and Barry. So it doesn't make a ton of sense to me to be an election of officers. I'm gonna hold that so we have all this thing. Discussion of operational matters, FY25 process review. Basically what we do at this point in the season is, first of all, welcome our new member. Representing the select board. I'm glad to have you aboard. The next item is we just kind of take a quick look at where we were and what we're doing next. So where we were was the fiscal year 25 process review. That can be comments you all have that have to do with any aspect of what we did. The only comment I have to lead off is I really think it's important that we're addressing the first run through Rory's during the respective meeting. It's come up in the past. There are different ways to address the Rory's. Rory's are the ranking of relative importance worksheets that we have. That is a numerical valuation system. And we do that for each request. And what I would like to do is do the first part of the Rory process, which is go through it, have people complete that. And if they have questions about what materials were presented. So the purpose of handling Rory's during the meeting is so that an individual member has some lack of clarity that comes up in discussion or from their notes after the department head leaves. We have an opportunity to sit together and talk about that, complete our Rory's, and then we discuss qualitative aspects on whether or not to recommend a particular request for the current fiscal year or for out year. We address that towards the tail end of the season because that's more of our subjective opinions. While the Rory is an expression of our subjective opinions based upon criteria in a systematic manner. The discussion towards the tail end, in order that we can vote requests up down for the current year, or for out year, there's a little more subjectivity to that. So I'd like to pull that off. So as we do it traditionally towards the end of the season, which is a lot of process. So anyways, Rory is the important aspect for me. It's something that gets lagging. It makes it very difficult for the members of the group who are involved in the report writing to accomplish the task they need to accomplish. It makes it difficult for the chair who's aggregating that information in order to put together a presentation for the select board and the finance committee to do his job or her job. So I'd like to start to see if we can systematize doing Rory's, completing Rory's during the meeting at which the request is presented.
I like that idea, and I like it because it allows me to make the notes, and then at the end of the process, correct the notes. To update them based on what we resolved. So that's helpful. Because I use a spreadsheet for that.
Yeah. Thoughts on the Rory's on that approach?
So we can, we'll do the Rory's in the meetings after we've heard from the department heads. But we'll have some discussion while we're doing it or before we do. And then at the end of the fall, when you, after we've heard from everyone, do you think change them or?
Yeah, and
I
yes,
think we need to them, not just relative to themselves, but to the other projects.
right. So one of the features we put in for, which should be relatively straightforward, was a save and submit button.
With
And
the
that
changes
allows us to actually accomplish that, where we can save our input, go away from the computer for a month or two or three. And we get in August, we're not going to pick some of these up again in November. And then we have an opportunity as individual members, if we want to make modifications, to make modifications. The relevance of the individual member inputs on is that it gets aggregated into a team average. And that team average is in November. Typically, what we do is we take that, we take a look at standard deviations of the average, we figure out what is pretty much safe, what is definitely needs to be talked about because it's below the standard deviation and the average. And then in addition to that, it's kind of like town meeting where any member can call out a particular request, even if it is numerically valued at being above the average, maybe the highest possible one. But it empowers the membership to be able to bring up their perspective on an individual request. For instance, maybe they think this is a cost that we can't, that there are, maybe it may simply be that this particular item on a cost benefit analysis costs much more than 15 other requests that we need. And therefore I would like to discuss that aspect of it. So anyways, that's what we do towards the tail end.
And some discussion about timing of that, of sort of community analysis.
So what did you guys?
Yeah, so we can actually address timing in a couple of different ways. One is when the department head is here. You know, what's the viability of this being a current year request being implemented in the current year, which is a year out. Or timing is to other elements of what's going on with financial measures and community, events and all that stuff. So it's pretty wide open, and I just encourage you, obviously, you're aware of the process, but if you have any questions, so feel free in the middle of the process then.
Right. Mr. Chair, so one thing that might hold up your ability to do Rory's while people are here is, as you know, we're scheduled to start meeting with department heads on August 15th. However, we cannot advance anything to Capcom review so that all the headings will be correct until all the members are appointed. And I believe NPDC will be fine because they are next week, I believe on the 29th. Okay. But I don't know when the remaining Capcom slot is going to be filled by the select board. So if it's not before the 15th, that meeting, you would not be able to Rory anything because we will have not been able to push it. Otherwise, the names will, the names at the top will, when you look at the reports that you can look at, they won't be correct.
So I actually have a suggestion on that. I want to speak to that, because I think I want to speak to the underlying issue, because it's important. I
Okay,
just-
so the CapCom member will not be appointed until 8/21 by the select board,
So-
just for your information.
No, I appreciate that. It's relevant, it's important, it's not on my mind, not just with respect to that position, but with respect to some topics we'll talk about briefly. What I would like to suggest, Brian, I know it involves a little bit of lifting, but a tiny bit. With Plug is that they put in a placeholder name. So they'll put in appointee 8/21. And they can push it, and then they can go back in the underlying table, and they can literally just insert the name. And that should populate the data throughout the database if you can verify that, because then that will allow us to utilize the RORIs as they're intended. When requests come in, not many, but I think more than a few of the members do their RORI evaluations shortly after the meeting. Now we're trying to do it during the meeting. So if you could address that, that'd be helpful. I just want to express, I think it's helpful, it's gonna make me feel better. I don't know if it's gonna make you guys feel better. But there's frustration because, on my part, because our schedule, it was proposed to be advanced this year in order to advance on the front end in order to advance on the tail end. All things being equal, I have absolutely no concern with that. But understanding the fact that the appointment schedule means that we don't know who our members are, so we don't know. We can't sit down and do, if we have new members, or make a change in the database in terms of categories, as we have this year. We have both instances. We can't actually affect the valuations that are required on our end to then give them to finance, to give to the database developer, so that then we can use the RORI evaluation sheet. So we were in a situation where I thought, after a lot of communication and having carefully planned, our schedule would work. I think it still will work as long as we can do the placeholder. We had to move back the start of our department head reviews by a couple of weeks or I think 3 weeks from the individual schedule. And of course, that pushes the tail end off. It's relevant. I'm bringing this up because it's relevant for you as a select board member and you as a finance committee liaisons to be aware of why our schedule is what our schedule is. Saying it differently, I'm not suggesting this has to be the case, but saying it differently, the sooner we have appointees, the sooner we can get started with what we need to do. And for instance, NPDC, they conduct their appointee process at their annual meeting. So, we defer to them on that. That's my understanding. That's typically the July meeting, and they typically meet the third week. I'm not sure the day, but that's what drives that. So that's relevant information on our overall process and kind of one of several gating schedule items that affects our ability to do what we do on a timely basis. For process review, I guess, Brian, I would just emphasize that for next budget season, if we're looking at advancing schedule, that we are, well aware that that is a problematic area. The other boards would need to get involved. It would probably be the easiest for NPDC, and I'm not suggesting they do it in June because they may have other underlying matters. The select board, their schedule is to appoint people on the schedule they have, which relates to other schedules. So it's not as, I understand it's not as simple as just moving things around. But if our schedule is going to be pushed forward, this needs to be addressed.
And so, 2 points. The schedule that we have now most likely will probably stay in terms of timing, and we did this because, as you know, we're trying to build a completely new budget book and trying to add more to it. So there's some underlying rationale for why we wanted to do this. Okay. But the second point is, I think we're only in this situation with the remaining appointment by the select board because unfortunately, an individual applied late. And there wasn't enough, there wasn't as many applicants that open seats, and one individual that reapplied, applied after the deadline, so now that pushes it into a second round. My expectation would be that if interested applicants submit their interest timely, that we would not be in the situation. We wouldn't be here, with the exception of maybe NP and EDC, but we can certainly have a conversation with them about the timing of that appointment to make sure that it lines up in a more a better fashion to accomplish what Capcom needs to do.
I appreciate that. And I think the one-off is the late submittal for Capcom. The NP and EDC matter, again, I respect they have their own schedule and underlying issues and matters to address and kind of feed into that. The problem there is that if it's a brand new member, and I just want to point out, for some reason, the 29th is a Monday. If they're not, I will be, well, first of all, this is the first I heard of it. So there's a little frustration with that because I need to be able to plan ahead to reach out to people in advance to make sure they go get sworn in so that they can actually attend the meeting, because August 1st is when we're doing board evaluations. What I'm going to do, I think what I'm going to do, just so you guys are aware, in order to avoid having a problem on the tail end, is I'm going to invite friends. What I'm going to do is, because I can do this as an individual member of the committee, with individual citizens, I'm going to invite Joe Landowski and Peter to a session on Zoom to complete the board evaluation. So I'll take on doing that a second time with a second group. And in that way, as soon as we know who is going to be the member, we can advance their values in the system. I have to think that through, Brian. If you could just take a look at whether, I think as long as the placeholder spot is created, there shouldn't be any issue with respect to valuations, because they're not going to utilize the Rory system until we've added them.
We'll send an email either tonight or tomorrow to Bill and Brian at Plum.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So that's something, a lot of housekeeping. Broad scope approach to FY26 is, I don't know, you guys want to talk about what we've done this year carried forward a little bit? So I'm glad I'm talking to.
Like what?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the broad scope of 26 is intended for new members. We've outlined some of it. We have department heads come in. We review requests. It's a Q&A session. We hope Sue has committed to having taking on the role of ensuring that requests are fully complete, all the supplemental information is in place. The idea is that we'll be able to, in my ideal world, our minutes last with a department head 20 minutes. We have all the information, we review it. You want to have a glass of Cabernet, iced tea, whatever it is, you're at home, you do it. You have questions, you jot them down, you come into the meeting, you ask the department head the questions, and then they can roll and we can do our worries, and everybody goes home happy when we've done a full and complete job efficiently and effectively. But that comes to the responsibility of the individual member previewing, and then that comes back to the responsibility to have completed requests and full supplemental information. Supplemental information, what I mean by that, Dawn, is we get a request for a new piece of airport equipment, and you've got a tear sheet on it, some idea, a tear sheet explaining what it is, because it's highly specialized equipment. We're not experts, but we want to have a general understanding. It may create questions from us for no one, or who's support staff. A tear sheet on a quote from, so we know that due diligence has been exercised in the state system for the cost. Things along those lines. Sue, are you there?
Yes.
If you could, will you pull up any Rory, when you get a chance, any Rory, and hit the print view for the SIP request form. And when that comes up, I'll just very, very briefly explain that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have, the reason I'm gonna go through this now with Dawn here is because she's here. And we owe the courtesy of that. But I'm gonna refer, if we have new members, to the tape. And they can get a feeling for what the upcoming year is about. Should be simple. Part of that will be the simple question. So we get through the process with the department heads. We're filling out our RORIs. We've talked about all this towards the tail end. We're trying to fill in missing information, any loose ends, last minute requests. Never ever happen. You never get a last minute request. I don't think the last 7 years that I've been chair. So that'll be tail end work that we address, and then we do a preliminary up down for the select board and the finance committee, so they have an idea of kind of what it is we're basically telegraphing what we anticipate the recommendation for their own discussions and their own planning, and then we begin to get into citizen articles, any that have capital requests, aspects, and we rank those and put them into the system. And then we get into funding sources, and then we get into finalizing all of our data, following up any notes and comments, including on grants, what the statuses of those, any of those are, and we turn to writing our report. And the whole process culminates in a report that we present to the select board. One element I haven't talked about here, and I know Brian, I'm glad you're here, you can address. A couple of years back, we initiated, I think it was actually 3 years back now, we initiated having the select board members and the finance committee members having access to Plum. That was from our end. Don't ever actually verify whether it happened.
We did, but I don't think anyone ever used it.
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial just at the very least with respect to expectations management, for us to send that information out. Don, the idea there is that select board members can log into the system, and if anyone wants to give them like a 5-minute tutorial, they can find a request, they can look up the information for themselves, they can look up the upfront data at that the department head fills in, and they can look at the supplemental information. The idea being here is that if we can answer questions in advance, it's beneficial for everyone. On their end, it's beneficial because if you all are having a discussion about a particular request for the department head, you've got the information. Sue, would you bring up the print view of the SIP request form for any of the RORIs?
You need to stop sharing.
Oh, I need to stop sharing.
Yeah, because you're still sharing. You got to do it on that screen over there. Or you could just hit the button, actually. Close that out, Mr. Chair. And then right at the top, the red button that says stop share.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I think so. Does it have a Zoom emblem on it?
No.
No, then that's my screen. So let me.
Fine,
Sure.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, the printer view,
Yep.
lower left. There you go. So, and will you go? I'm gonna have you click back to normal view, and then in a second back to this one, but on upper left.
What, you want me to go back to normal? Is that what you said? Oh.
Yeah. And can you scroll up a little bit so we can see the margin on left? So this is for Dawn and this is for new members. Basically, this is the digital version of the SIP request form. On the left-hand side, there are tabs. Will you click introduction, please, Sue? All right, so this is all of these individual tabs on the left are replicated or drawn from. Now, if you go back down to the print view, there you go. All of that information in the tabs is here. So if you're working on a tablet or the computer and you want to use the tablet view, you can. If you want to print something out and utilize that and look at the data, the information, you can use this view. This summarizes it should, with a complete request, summarize pretty much every aspect of a request that capital program requires in order to be effective, efficient and effective in its duties. I want to jump down to, if you would scroll down a little bit further to the tables. Okay, yeah, and go up a little bit more soon to the headings. There you go. So one of the aspects of this is for complicated requests, there's obviously going to be more fields filled in, but it provides a valuation based on the categories for the cost breakdown. It's very detailed. Can you scroll down a little more, Sue? That deals more with the project management aspects of it. So this was the database was developed before looking, so it could be utilized for the town finance purposes. Attached documents are here. Obviously, none are attached to this one. And then these are more of more relevant pieces of information. It's whether it's in the SIP capital improvement program plan already, when it was entered, so on and so forth, prior appropriations, the amounts, the balance. If you scroll down a little bit more, Sue, funding sources. Next one is effects of funding for taxes, other income, and then if there are non-financial impacts. And then general notes. So that's all the information you'll find there. Let's see. I think unless you all guys have questions on that, it's pretty dry, but it's helpful to know that it's there and be reminded. That's all. Again, I wanted to at least touch on some of the aspects for the version. If you don't have any questions on the FY26 approach, we'll jump to the next item on the agenda. Or comments?
I don't want to jump your agenda.
No, well,
When we made a lot of recommended changes.
we're going to get to that.
Okay, and the second thing is, when is the Rory going to be populated with the department head requests?
Yeah, we're going to get to that. So
Okay.
I appreciate you being forward. Let's see. So attendance policy. Obviously, we're only as strong as one, having a quorum, and two, people attending and contributing to the process. It's easy to get behind on Rory's if we're doing 3 departments and you miss a meeting, you miss another meeting, you're 5 departments behind. It's a lot of work. So that's relevant. One of the reasons, well, primary reason we moved our meetings from the mornings on Thursdays to the evenings was actually back in our August 10th meeting last year. It was brought up. There were conflicts where if there was a select board executive session on a Thursday morning, we wouldn't have a quorum because sometimes an NPDC member would be involved, or if we had a select board member who was one of these people who we were missing. Oh, one of our select board members was the NPDC rep, so we would miss out. So any of that, we try to accommodate. Understanding select board has a ton of other stuff to do. We moved our meetings to the afternoon. Just want to mention that because it came up on the August 10th agenda that we were reviewing last year. And it's organizational processes. I think that's where we are with organizational processes is this year, the Rory enhancements. We spent a considerable amount of time investing in enhancements that would help capital program committee members do their job and at the same time better communicate what it is we were looking for from the finance committee and the department heads. The other aspect, well, I don't want to get into when they'll request to be loaded. We'll get to that in a minute. Log into the capital program software to do some prep work for next week's meeting. Some of our enhancements included modifications to categories, not so much categories, but the individual criterion, renaming or changing what they were. And then that we will address evaluating them in August. But I didn't see any of the changes the enhancements we submitted back on the first Monday in June. So I don't know if I was looking at something incorrectly, Sue. What I mean by that is what I tried to do was I loaded the current capital requests that are in the system. Looked like there's probably a couple dozen of them. I picked a few different ones and and then I went to looked at, for instance, we were looking to have the request amount on the top of each of the tab pages. We were looking for different fields to be added in introduction or in SIP status. And I didn't see any of those. I don't know if I'm looking at maybe I'm accessing it incorrectly. So I guess what I wanted to find out from you guys is when will those go live? And then the other thing we wanted to find out, well, I'll answer and then we can get confirmation and correction. Howard's question is when will the requests be loaded? And I anticipate that we will have requests for the respective departments that we're reviewing by the meeting before. And I understand the first group may be a little slower, but that gives the membership an opportunity to preview, do their homework. They've got questions, they're ready to go. And again, we got department heads. Right now, what's happening with department heads is they're coming in and they're giving an individual presentation for each request. Where in a way, we're in very real sense, we're having duplicated their efforts. And I think it's not effective. What I mean by that is they're inputting information in software so that we have it to review. But if we're asking questions like, how much is this request, which we don't typically do. But if we ask simple questions that are already answered by reviewing the information submitted, I just would suggest it's not a good use of anyone's time. So I want to really focus this year on previewing information. It's been a difficult task in the past because department heads have been tasked with completing the Rory request form, the SIP request form information, but they all have a different perspective on what the relevant metrics are. So we weren't always getting all the data we needed. And now that Sue's been on board for a few years now, I think it's a few years, and she's going to be involved with completing those forms. I think it should be easier for us to be previewing, just coming to meetings and asking questions. So that was the organizational process side. I left open to give you a moment or two. The Capcom enhancements. Can you address that now, or you want to address it next week?
I can address it to the extent that we had a lengthy, Sue and I had a very long meeting with Plum, with them to go through, to clarify any questions that they had. They have them all. They're working on them. I think the plan was they were gonna do them in a database that Sue and I had access to make sure that they were done the way we had requested them to be done. I think the hope is that they would be done in time for 8:15 at the latest. We can follow up, but I know they've been working on it because they've been sending us back and forth a little bit about it. But to answer Howard's question, along with that, until we verify this placeholder theory for the Rory to be able to have for the Rory piece, we won't be able to put anything in play. So there will be, if they say that we can't do this, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying if they say it's not going to work because for whatever reason, then no projects can be advanced until all the members are seated, because otherwise the names will not reflect correctly.
So I would suggest two things.
So we need to once we figure that out, then I can tell you when they're going to be advanced. If they say we can do it that way, then, we have been to follow up. I mean, we've been meeting with town administration. We have done probably 98% of our Rorys already, with the exception of the things that didn't have enough information, which we have put to the side. And departments may or may not have an opportunity to follow up and give us more at this point. I don't know how we're going to deal with that quite yet, but everything that we're giving you, I would say with 99.8% certainty is fully complete and has all the relevant information at this point, including supplemental information uploaded. Sue has done a tremendous job in inputting them all so that there's consistency amongst all the descriptions and all the narratives. We follow up usually at least probably once a week. Sue has a conversation about where the status is. So as soon as if we can have that conversation before Wednesday of next week, then I can give you a better update of what the expectation is. But they were all prioritized to try to make it go a little bit smoother and more efficiently in terms of what they could and couldn't accomplish as quickly as possible. So.
Okay, so I think there are a couple things there, Brian. One is with a placeholder, if you guys can't push the placeholder, if you can't utilize the placeholder, which I'm not going to get in the weeds on this, but on the database development side, it should be relatively easy because they're using a source table for that information. So they would just be able to change it in publication, and then it'll populate through when whatever database repopulates.
But it also pulls from the active registry that we have. And if that, I don't know if we're going to be able to switch that. Well, we may be able to switch the name. I don't know if it'll work. We're going to ask them because the Rorys populate from the active registry when we create a new account, right? That's where it pulls from when we label whether you are finance, town budget committee, capital program committee, so on and so forth, right? And it pulls from that active directory of active members at the time. So
Exactly how I would anticipate the database to be designed.
Right.
All I'm saying is that from that directory, instead of putting in someone's name,
we'll just put placeholder.
they'll put in placeholder, and then the only place you'll need to change that information is
in the active directory, right? And we'll confirm that will work. If it will, then that's an easy fix and we can go quickly.
If it doesn't, and you can't push the data, how are we going to review it in advance of the department head being here? Or, you know,
I'll give you my login.
and the alternative, are we modifying our schedule because we can't review it?
So I think before we jump there and go down there,
I just want
yeah,
to,
no,
I want to put some anchor points.
it's a worthwhile conversation to have, but I would suspect that we could have an answer to that question by the time we convene next week. And if the answer is no, then that conversation becomes more relevant next Wednesday than it is right now when we don't know the answer to it. I think it's the best way that I would answer that, Mr. Chair.
So the next part is, I guess I want to make sure you guys are prioritizing, you had submitted to feedbacks. The enhancements that have been submitted were all enhancements that were from a database programming standpoint, very easy.
They were aggregated with anything else that we wanted and then
Yeah.
put together. So
So I guess my point is we didn't push to you the heavier modifications that some of the heavier modifications that we discussed that would involve, that we actually put off, many of them, which would involve having to make modifications to the framework of the database, which would have a ripple effect throughout. So I'm hopeful, because we haven't talked about this, that the enhancements that were submitted for as of 5/30, which we submitted on June 3rd, are all incorporated. Now, if they're not, and well, presuming they are, even if they aren't, I would like to, in the interest of moving this thing forward, because we're going to be running out of time, with a later completion in August, like to take a look at it to make sure that your interpretation of my interpretation, the substance of our meeting lines up with what they put in the database, so that if there is something that needs to be modified, we're not going back and forth via emails trying to figure it out. So if you could maybe think about that and let me know your thoughts, and if we could schedule when I could get involved in that briefly. And Jill's gonna be leaving, so we're gonna run out. No,
I can go over there and then I saw those people show up to use the room.
That's okay. I understand you've got finance committee. So we're gonna wrap up, I think.
have fun.
The next thing.
See you, Joe.
I'll announce is just that. And then take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Hey, Jill, you're good with adjournment? Good with adjournment? Okay, so welcome to CapCon.
You can stop the recording now.